from
Okay.
there?
Good.
Okay, so our prompt we're discussing today is prompt number 5. It says, be creative, discuss a new model for school, use your imagination, and re-envision school by creating a vivid description of an improved school with alternative structures that integrate with the future and with the needs of students. Describe what a great and ideal school would look like. Support your ideas with evidence from research. Focus on several important features of your vision and how they would transform education.
Okay. Thank you so much, Derek, for doing that. Okay, I don't know. To me, this one really hit home. One thing about, I've noticed this in the last module, the book itself, it's dated a bit. I don't know if you noticed that. And then some of the videos, I was like looking down to see, oh, what date were those, you know? Because some of the things they've talked about are not things that we're just envisioning anymore. They're things that we're seeing happen, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot of already implementation, especially here in the state of Kansas with the redesign that's already following a lot of those models that were being shown.
And so it's kind of interesting. You read it and what they were thinking, and then to me, and like seeing where things have actually panned out and worked, and where we're still, I mean, again, we're getting, you know, Chromebook carts and, you know, different types of technology in the schools, and a lot of schools are one-to-one. I don't have that, but there's still like in a couple different things, it's the matter of we're just still using the technology just like we would a chalkboard, whiteboard, pencil, and paper, you know, just putting it on.
There's still a gap.
Yeah.
There's still a gap. So for example, I teach 3 separate business classes. One of them happens to be web page design. I have freshmen through seniors. Very first time I met one of my freshmen came in with his MacBook and said, I don't know how to use it. I've only ever used an iPad in middle school.
Okay.
So we're giving them technology and then not showing them how to use it. And then he comes into my computer room, my classroom, which is also a lab, so to speak. I've got outdated PCs. So I've got outdated PCs for them to use. They've got their own MacBooks. They don't know how to use them. Where are we fitting the growth with technology in this part?
Right. So, I mean, yeah, technology is pretty important, I think, in like our reinvention and like what we would imagine in a school. So, yeah, I mean, it's important that we have up-to-date technology and that the kids know how to use it. So kind of just going to the discussion question itself, what do we need to do then with the technology? What are we trying to, what do we see? Maybe what everybody, if anybody, you know, you have an idea like re-envisioning school, what do you think? I mean, I can tell you things that I wrote down really quick. Like, I mean, for me, one-to-one is still not a thing that we have. I think that's really important. But, and I was imagining through the different videos talking about, you know, the kids did kind of project-based learning type things, and kids, you know, doing the jobs, even the video where they created at the barbershop, the community agency to let people know what healthcare, you know, things they have. But I mean, because I imagine in a school like STEM labs, art labs, music studios, you know, even like health sciences centers, where you literally, you know, teach kids to at least take pulses and heartbeats, things like that. I don't know if you could do drawing blood, like engineering, like teaching them CAD, things like that.
Right.
But not, and that sounds a whole lot like VOTEC to me, some of it, not the music necessarily and the art, but I'm thinking more even like on a middle school level and below, where we start teaching them these things earlier and let them choose, like when they're really young, maybe explore all these things, exploratory type things, the things that they're going to use in life. And then as they move into middle school, more go towards picking an area to study. And then like the whole idea of letting kids choose what they're going to learn. You know, of course we have to teach them to read and basic arithmetic and things like that. And we have to teach them to use the technology. But I don't know. I thought that's a pretty cool idea, letting kids choose what to learn. So that was what I imagined. Somebody else, Derek? You know?
I think we're starting to see some of that, at least in my district right now. I teach at Andover, outside of Wichita. They opened up a CAPS program. So all sophomores, juniors, and seniors can go for half a day there. And it's brand new this year where they get to like do internships for half a day, or they get to shadow engineers, actually hopefully work on real world projects. But when I was reading through the book and stuff like that, talking about the heroic school schedules and just how, like we follow, like I go from school from 7:30 to 3:30 every day, 7 hours, kids are in there for 7 hours. And I think you guys all know too, like by the end of the day, those kids are like worn out. You don't get as much work from them the 7th hour, but and probably some of it too is because they don't get to choose what they want to do at the end of there. So you get to 7th hour and you've got a math class or something like that. For a kid who hates math, doesn't see any point of why I'm going to do math. Maybe they would be a welder or something and thinking, I don't need to be in algebra 3. I think eliminating all the kids have to take 3 years of math. It's not an option. So all that choice is kind of taken away from them. So when I was thinking like schooling and what it could be, it's hard to think because I liked school. I think most of us probably did. That's why we are teaching to some extent. But, just giving kids that more voice and stuff like that, kind of what, as you were saying.
Yeah, well, and that's like goes to the interlocking structures, the scheduling, what was it, grouping of the adults and the kids, and then the space, like virtual space and physical space. So that's kind of part of that. Yeah, definitely. Anybody else have like some kind of
I really like the idea of, I think it's really cool. You have the apps program to where you said that starting the sophomore year, they only go for half a day. I was actually looking into like the German school system, some of the European school systems, where starting the freshman year, they start to do that, where even the highest achieving students do that. And then kind of the mid-tier achieving students will do that for half the day. And so I think that, like you said, the 7-hour school day is a bit antiquated. I don't think we do get the best work out of the teachers and students alike. And I think that change in scenery and more real world application would be better for both.
Yeah.
I agree. Like my school district has, so we have the one high school that I work at, but we also have a school that's called Journey School of Choice. And students have to apply to get into the school, and so do their parents. But it's for those students who don't do well in a public school setting or in hot classes that have high numbers of students to teachers, but they can choose what time they go to school, whether it's in the morning, the afternoon, or the evening. So that way they can take care of any outside obligations, whether they have family needs or job issues as well. So not only are they picking the time they go to school, they're picking their curriculum as well.
I just want to ask, is that like they're stuck with the same time every day, or they could pick the time daily? Like say somebody's little sister gets sick and they have to stay home with them or something.
I think they can choose any time on the day. We provide buses, but it's up to them to actually get there.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
That's pretty interesting. Because I taught in an urban school for 15 years. And even in elementary, you would have kids in upper elementary that would miss school to stay home with their like 5-year-old brother,
Right.
Because mom was working. So, something like that where you had like some choices throughout the day and you wouldn't miss everything. Again, not having a 7-hour school day like that.
Mm-hmm. Or even ultimately, like I spoke about last week, the flipped classroom. If they can't make it to school during the day because for whatever reason they were sick, sibling was sick, they have a job, they can still get the lesson at home via technology. Mm-hmm. So they're not losing time or knowledge, and they're not behind when they do come back to school. And that also eliminates the what we do yesterday.
Have you used the classroom?
I have not. I spoke to a couple of instructional coaches at my school today, and they don't see it working for our kids just because they go home and don't do homework.
Right. That's one of the things that I've heard before with flipped classroom and I'm trying to decide to maybe get into it myself on the industrial arts side, because like the safety programs and stuff that I do, that's, if I could just get it recorded and have them do that at home, it more of a
right.
Work at your own pace, and we could actually get have the hands-on time actually in the shop itself.
See, I'm doing that with my web design class. And I know a school I was at last year, the math teacher did it, and it worked for her. So I don't know where the disparity is on kids that are actually actively interested, going home and pulling it up,
Right.
versus the kids that are like, I'm home for the day, I'm done with school.
Right.
So I don't even assign homework now because I know it's not going to get done, and I don't want to chase down these assignments because it's impacting their grade. So I have a 50-minute class. They get 15, 20 minutes of lesson. We get 20 minutes of work time, whether it's through groups or interactive tech program, if I have a video or can set up a Skype field trip, and then 15 minutes to summarize it and maybe go over answers unless I'm grading it for knowledge.
I got you.
Okay, I don't want to like monopolize, but okay, you're talking about like the time thing and where you have like, I'm in middle school now and it's the 50-minute blocks. So the 7 periods a day.
Right.
To me, that just does not work. It's not enough time to really address what you need to with kids. I mean, especially when you're introducing new materials, it's not enough time to get into projects, do some PBLs, stuff like that. 50 minutes a day. Especially if it involves, a lot of materials and things, you get them out and then it's like, okay, we work on it for like 25 minutes and you have to put it away. So, I mean, just the period schedule, that type of thing to me, drives me crazy. My own kids their school, it's a magnet school. It's a block schedule with AB days. So they have longer, which I think is pretty fantastic. I don't even know if those periods are long enough though, honestly.
I liked how in the book they kind of talked about that advocating for planning for matching times to tasks. Because, not every, like I teach chemistry. So, on days we're a lab, we have 45-minute class periods one day and 50-minute class periods the other. 45 minutes by the time a kid comes in to get the lab going and stuff like that, it really limits what you can do. But on days where, they're working problem sets and getting skills and stuff like that, they don't need 3 hours. So I think that was the interesting thing that the book talked about of, how do we, how much stranglehold, I guess you could say, that time schedule puts on us. So if we were reimagining school, how would that, like, how would you, but then how do you fight between other teachers, like, oh, I need 10 minutes today, but I need 2 hours tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Right. I had the same discussion earlier where we were talking about block scheduling versus 7 hours a day, which is what we're doing. And we had narrowed it down that English, math, foreign language, they all need at least an hour a day. They need to be consistently worked on so that they're gaining those skills. But the rest of the classes could ultimately benefit from those 1.5 hour, those 90-minute chunks or 2 hour chunks, such as auto shop or trades or welding or science. What about doing half and half?
I think that's an awesome idea. There has to be a way to do that.
Why
does everything have to be the same? Yeah, there are some.
Yeah, I've heard of schedules where you go 7 class periods 3 days a week, and then you split block periods the other 2 days.
That seems like it'd be easy to do. Yeah, that would.
That last year with in our redesign stuff, we actually had we did it in the middle of the year, so we had to deal with the schedules of the classes that we were already doing at the time. So we did it to where there was like 3 classes, or the first 2 classes in the day were the same classes every day, and they were the 50-minute class. Then you had a longer block class to finish up the morning before lunch. Then we had a long lunch that was kind of an open hour. So if students needed to meet with their instructor to make up something or whatever, they could do that kind of over the lunch period as well. And then there was a longer block right after, and then the very last class at the end of the day was the exact same 50-minute every day. So those 2 blocks, then those were on an A-B schedule. They flipped, and for what we had, it worked really well. There was quite a few teachers that really liked it. There was some issues with it just because we're in a K-12 school that very limited staff, and so trying to fit students in where we needed to, on certain things was a little difficult. But I think you're right. I think there is that happy medium that could be done. It's just a matter of really playing with the schedule really hard to try to figure it out together.
Well, then for that, I'm thinking like for the small staff type thing, is that where you go in and look at other resources, like web resources, and you connect with other schools?
That was actually what I was about to suggest, is not only can you use online web, so we're taking all of our classes online. Can we potentially connect them with another school that has that class and have them do it online? Or I know that the Shawnee Mission School District, because earlier we were talking about letting the student choose their career path or choose the path they want to follow. They have in their admin center, it's set up for 3 hours a day, morning and afternoon, for different career paths like nursing or culinary or auto shop. And the students leave the high school, they're bused to that center for that 3 hour block a day to get the hands-on experience. And then they come back for their regular classes.
Yeah. So it's just a bigger I mean, you know, there used to be VOTEC, that's all there was. And so just kind of like an expansion, a more modern expansion on what was a traditional kind of tech education. I also have to wonder though, like these things that we're talking about, like funding is always an issue, you know, like,
right.
I mean, especially you're talking about small schools and just even, you know, I teach at a large school. It's not Title I, so you don't have those kinds of monies. Where I came from, a Title I school, we had tons of technology. If it's not, you know, we don't have that there, you know. So where does it come from? Yeah.
I know there's on my side in the industrial arts deal. One of the first things when I first got in here is that they told us, you know, yeah, we get a bigger budget than all the other classes just for the fact that we have the machines and certain things.
Right.
But even then, it's never enough. So it's a matter of basically we go out and we've got to do outrageous amounts of networking with businesses and stuff like that in order to try to get the donations and stuff. And I think it's almost to the point, you know, yeah, that the businesses have been doing that and been contributing for years. But now if you start to try to do that even more to the communities, I mean, left and right, people are getting hit up all the time. So, you know, you've expended the donation avenue already, you know, so. And
what about sponsorships?
Say that.
Sponsorships? Because yeah, they're getting asked for money all the time, but what can we do to return the favor to them? If they're giving us material to build something, could we put their name on it? Could we advertise them at a sports game?
Well,
what can we do to strengthen that partnership?
Also, is there somebody on your staff that is good at writing grants? Has ever done that? I mean, because that's a big thing. Nobody likes to write grants, but there's usually always at least one person that does it. I mean, getting somebody that writes grants maybe to do that. I mean, I can see what you're teaching. You don't just have to have paper and pencils. You know, you're not just having to come up with that. So that's
even in the others ones too. I mean, if you're trying to expand the students for what they actually want to go into, trying to find the staff that has the knowledge to do that is an issue too at times. You know, and that's where a huge chunk, you know, in anything. I mean, I'm sure we're all understaffed where we're all at. I don't know that there's a school that has a surplus of teachers. So, you know, trying to find the ways to where the district themselves can have that additional monies in order to fund an extra salary for those kids that want to take a whole nother career path or that type of stuff.
Is anyone watching the time? Because I think we're going to run out.
We're getting close.
We might want to change
a
the
bit.
topic.
Has anybody thought about like as far as like the grouping of kids and as far as how we, you know, grade levels and kind of changing that and what difference that would make? It might even on a bit enough resources affect the resources.
I think, I mean, if you think about it, so this year I'm teaching a new class. So I teach AP chemistry at one level, and then I teach physical science, which is kind of the lowest tier for sophomores through seniors. And it is interesting. This year, I think I've noticed grouping is the biggest difference. You know, when previously I've been pretty lucky and taught honors classes all the time. So, you know, most sophomores in honors classes have about the same level. And, you know, that grouping seemed to work pretty well for them. But now that I'm in that in science class, I see the difference between, you know, a sophomore that is getting, you know, 0 on formative assessments and somebody getting, you know, 90 to 100, but they're grouped together because they're not, you know, in the high level classes, but they're sophomores. So this is the science class you take as a sophomore, and whether you're ready for it or not, here you come. And I don't know, effective, obviously, you know, to differentiate, you know, traditionally to differentiate that, and I think is impossible. So I think it is interesting how the book brought up, you know, like, well, how could you differentiate, or how could you group children based on, you know, maybe more on skill sets rather, or past, and, you know, not necessarily being so rigid on just normally an age requirement within, you know, within reason, of course.
Right.
I have a question for you on that, Derek, and how you seen this in your classroom. I experienced it today. One of my communications classes, I have students that have blown through my 10-day plan of worksheets, because right now we're going over the importance of proofreading. And then I have students who are still working on spelling. So do you group them and say, okay, everyone who's working on this assignment here, everyone on this assignment here? Or do you feel like the students are gonna start looking at that and going, wait a minute, what's the difference between our groups?
Yeah, well, I think one of the videos that we watched talked about kids tutoring, you know, for other kids and stuff like that. And I know there's research out there with like Kagan grouping and stuff like that, that you group higher level kids with
Right.
Medium and lower level kids, and allow the kids. I think it was Alan November that talked about that. They, you know, who owns the learning. About
That's the last video I didn't get to, since we did this 2 days early. So sorry, guys.
But he talked about, you know, like some of the best teachers sometimes, and we all have seen this too, our kids and stuff like that. So I don't think, you know, at the other extreme of grouping kids, you don't want to pull like, oh, you're an honor student, let's pull all you guys out away from everybody else. So then, you know, they don't get the chance to use their learning to help out other students and stuff like that. So I think in an ideal setting, that I don't think that would be.
And then the other part of that is like the high kids, this happened in elementary a lot, they can't always be working with the lower kids on the skills they're struggling on. You've got to challenge those kids too.
That's why I started with group assignments, so that they're all randomly set up. So I've got high skills and low skills. They're working together when they get group time. And I find that's kind of keeping them. But at the same time, some of my higher kids are going, all right, now I'm done with this.
Yeah.
And I've helped them out. I'm tired of helping. Let's move on.
Yeah, I feel like the honors classes are kind of a good balance for that. In KCK, we have pretty much an honors school. So we're like Sumner Academy is where all of the brightest students from KCK go starting in 8th grade. And there's kind of a vacuum of student leadership that happens when they go into high school. And so they're just starting to get honors classes at my school and some of the other high schools that aren't Sumner. And I think that's good for the students to kind of be around the higher achieving students. But I've seen it a lot where there's kind of natural student leaders to where they're in the classes with the lower level kids, and they really are kind of teachers' assistants.
Hey guys, we're in like 2 minutes left, so we probably need to wrap up. That went kind of fast. Anybody want to? Derek, you started us. I mean, I feel like, you know, we kind of started out with, I mean, I mentioned a grand thing, and then we're now all kind of putting it into reality as far as looking at what is happening in our schools and what can happen. I mean, we could talk for like hours about this. I feel like.
Yeah, but he also wanted us to go into detail. What does this school look like? Is it a large school with large rooms? Is it a small school with smaller classrooms? I was reading an article today that how do you build the perfect school? And a lot of them took into account the socioeconomic approach, and also with mental health and trauma.
Trauma informed. Yeah, all that, everything goes into that. Yeah.
And building a yoga room instead of a detention room. So what does this school actually look like for us?
No, I think in like 30 minutes we're not able to come up with absolutely everything, discuss everything. We're down to like a minute now. I mean, so
Josh, do you want to close it?
Standardized tests, or at least a change in standardized testing would be something to actually measure education. that'd be a big change.
That's a great place to start for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. We're really out of time, so I guess we can look at this and then we can discuss. Do we want to redo it? That wasn't, or whatever. And who record? Did anybody else record it?
I tried.